Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, hope you're all well. So in this video, we're looking at the Boss DD-500. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this pedal's been out for probably the longest time over the RV and MD-500. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is because Boss have released a system update for the DD-500, allowing you to use it in the same way the MD and RV-500 pedals can be used as well. By that I mean you can send independent delays out of one output and the other output. So if you're running a stereo rig like I do, I could send one type of delay to one side and a completely different type to the other side independently. And basically they've updated it so it functions in exactly the same way as the MD and the RV. In case you didn't see those videos, I've put them in the description box below, basically going over the pedals, the different sounds they can create, and a little bit on the functionality. So I wanted to do something similar here. However, because the DD-500's been out a long time, there's plenty of great reviews on how to use it and what it's capable of. So I wanted to sort of breeze through the tones, show you how you can use the new routing options inside the menus, and then just generally play around and see what you think. So first things first, let's go through the delays. So the way I've got my rig set up right now is I'm running two Victory VX Krakens in stereo. They're both running into 2 Notes Torpedo Live and a Torpedo Studio, which you can see here and here. All of the audio is being captured by the Universal Audio Apollo 8P, running into Logic, and I'm using a PRS Paul's guitar. So you're always going to hear 2 amps running at the same time, giving us different delays. When we start routing down to individual delays, I can mute each side, but just so you know what you're listening for. So this is the sound of the guitar as is. So that's the sound of the guitar on its own, and we're going to go through all the delays, starting with the standard delay. Okay, so that's the standard delay. Now, the one thing I do want to point out before we move on is that in terms of when you're editing the patch and the kind of things that you can do inside the menu system, it's quite similar to the RV and the MD-500. If I focus on the RV for 1 second, because it's a reverb pedal, they also have featured delays in there as well. And the way that you access those is by going into the menu, and then you could basically change the mode inside the reverb unit you were using. However, with the DD-500, when you're on a preset and then you go into the menu, if we look on the GoPro, you'll be able to see, if I go to patch and I go in, and then if I scroll to the top of the page, you can see here it says mode, and currently in standard, that refers to the delay machine that we're currently using. So that being standard, if I skip along, you can see it's scrolling to Terra Echo, slow attack, filter, and what's actually doing there is scrolling between the different delay machines in the DD-500. So we're not adding an extra feature into the patch, we're actually changing the fundamental delay machine, just to bear that in mind. Okay, Terra Echo, let's turn this up, I want to have a listen. I like the kind of falling away quality that the Terra Echo has. I actually did a review of the Terra Echo pedal on its own on my channel a long time ago, which I'll put in the description box as well. But the Terra Echo, it's essentially the same sort of thing as the Singular Stomp Box, whereby it gives you that kind of falling away textural pad effect. Absolutely invaluable in the studio for sure. Next up, we have slow attack. So this is going to be a delay repeat with a very slow attack, like a swell almost. So So that's the slow attack delay. It's got a very synthy kind of quality to it. I quite like it. I do want to point out that if you go into the menu of this patch, so if we're on the slow attack and then you hit edit, and then when you go into patch, you can see we've got you'll scroll down, you'll be able to see where it says curve, rise time and sense, which means sensitivity. Now you can affect how fast that happens, that kind of attack, or how slow, should I say. So if I was to turn this down, the attack would be a lot faster. So if I go rise time and then I turn it all the way down, you'll hear there isn't really a swell in. But if I turn it all the way up, you'll notice it should be a lot slower. It almost doesn't happen. However, if you go to curve, this is where we sort of, the curve of the volume in, so to speak. So the higher we make that, the longer it lasts. And it can create a kind of reversed delay kind of sound, which is very cool. So this is what it's like without any. So next we've got filter. This will be useful if you want to have like a sort of wah-wah effect or some sort of almost vocal-like quality to the delay. Alternatively, it can be used like a notch kind of filter, you know, so it's quite flexible, but you can use it in a high pass, low pass application, really quite versatile. So let's move across and see where we're at straight in. What I like about that sort of filter, like wah-wah delays, it's some sort of galactic funk episode going on. Quite dig it. But I want to jump into the menu real quick and see what we can do. If we jump into patch again, you can see we can change the LFO rate, the depth, the type. So at the minute it's on triangle, which is generally talking about the wave. So it visits 3 points in its sort of cycle before it comes back to the start. So that would be triangle. We can change that. You should be able to do sine wave. So this is going to be a bit smoother. If we move across, square. So this should be a little bit more brash. Yeah, the attack, you can hear the way that the note, instead of it being a wow, wow, it's kind of jumping between each side. It's only jumping between two different sounds. So I'm going to put it on sine. I'm going to put it on square, and let's just mess around a little bit. Let's change some of the parameters. Turn the LFO rate down, and the filter type, high pass filter. So filter can do some pretty weird stuff, cool layers and textures going over some of your other things. One thing I should probably mention at this point is sometimes delays can sound a little bit weird when you don't throw in other effects such as reverbs, and obviously it's guitar sound dependent and guitar part dependent. So I'm really just trying to breeze over the sounds here, but hopefully you're digging the way this thing sounds. I certainly am. So next we're moving over to Shimmer. In the reverb world, this is quite a popular sound whereby it adds a harmony on top of your sort of reverberation. In this case, it'll be on top of the delay repeats, so you should hear another note, which we can change if we want, the blend of it, all sorts of stuff. But let's hear how it sounds straight in. So that's Shimmer, adding a nice harmony on top. Very useful, very euphoric, and just you could create some very, very beautiful ambient pads with that. Of course, if you could team that with a Shimmer reverb, then it would be intense. Next up, we got sound effects. Let's switch over. So at the minute, let's just have a listen to what we've got. I like that slicer effect almost. I could immediately feel myself wanting to write with that. But let's see what sound effects we've got. If we go into patch, go in. Okay, so it's already on type. So we've got tremolo and phaser. Now we can obviously change that. So this is the lo-fi balance, the sample rate we can mess around with. I imagine that really messes up the sound of the repeat. Okay, so I'm immediately impressed with this. So that's the sound effects delay, mega useful for getting those kind of weird, haunting kind of effects and low bit stuff. I really, really dig that. So let's move on. Reverse, classic. I mean, it's trippy and it reminds me a lot of the Beatles. Of course, not only that, it's just that's where it puts me if I'm thinking about reverse delays. So let's move on. Pattern. Again, that's one of those sounds that's immediately inspiring to me. Could write a part, could write a song with that. Definitely put me in a place. That's something I really grasp onto when I find a piece of gear with unique sounding effects in it. And that's something I discovered with the other 500 series pedals that Boss did with the MD and the RV. And it's no exception here with the DD-500. You know, I used it with Pete, but having a little bit more in-depth look at it, it's very powerful. Cool, so now we're moving on to the dual delay. This is probably one of my favorites because I like the way you can have opposing rhythms with the different delay repeats. I've always used dual delay over a singular delay, just as a general thing. So let's see what the dual delay pattern sounds like. Okay, let's turn the feedback up a touch. So that's the dual delay. Moving on, we've got vintage digital. So this is going to probably replicate some sort of 80s digital reverbs. Let's have a listen. So that's vintage digital. It's worth pointing out that you can edit the everything about these different delay sounds. Like for example, with the dual one, I played in only the one sound, but you could mess around with the time signature of that to give yourself some really weird rhythms. And the same goes for all the different delay sounds. You know, you can really edit them to the nth degree. I'm just giving you a quick overview. So if we go into the vintage digital patch, and I guess in this, it's just going to allow us to really affect the sort of quality of the signal, because obviously vintage gear generally tends to be a little bit more sort of warmer, more of that analog vibe. As you can see, it's replicating the SD-3000 DD2. Okay, interesting. So the vintage digital patch on the Boss DD-500 is basically giving us two vintage delay units that Boss released way back in the day, like the DD2. I never actually owned a DD2, I had the DD3, but that's pretty cool. So this is the SD-2000. For me, you can hear on the 2000, you've got a bit of that modulation whirring going. On the 3000, that goes away a bit. It's a little bit warmer. The attack's a little bit hotter. And then obviously the DD2 is where it's really quite an intense attack. It's quite a block of delay hitting you in the face there. Bit of that whirry sound going on. And then the 2000... So that's cool, and underneath it says ×2. That basically doubles the time of the delay. So at the minute we've got it set like this. If I turn it on, it should be twice as long. Very useful. That's the vintage digital if you want to recreate some of those original Boss delay units they used to use. Moving on to tape delay now. Tape obviously with the lowest quality of repeats signal integrity. So like... really warm and moody kind of delay sound. If we go into patch, I imagine you can change the amount of tape heads. Yep, so you've got 1 to 2, then you've got 1 to 3, 2 to 3, then 1, 2, and 3. So it's combining the different tape heads to give you kind of like a flanger effect, or way more of a kind of vibey effect, if that were. You know, you'll hear the oscillations between the tape heads. So as you can see in type, we've got the RE201, then we've got Echo P, Echo R. Now I'm assuming those are different models of tape echo that Roland/Boss released back in the day, which you can move between. Okay, so the last delay machine is analog. This is another one that I really enjoy. Basically, analog delay, the signal deteriorates in quality, so the integrity of the delay actually gets worse. So it starts out clear, then gets progressively worse. Let's have a listen. See what I mean? It's kind of a warm bed, almost sounds like reverb. It really gives you a very ambient, moody vibe, so I enjoy that. So if we go into edit, you can see in patch, I've scrolled down to where it says stage. Now I'm assuming this is the stage of deteriorations that happen. Could be completely wrong, but to my ear, what it sounds like is at 4096 you get this. Now if we do 4096 times 2, and then 4096 times 4. So there you go. There was an overview of all the different delay machines inside the DD-500. I figured the world doesn't need another in-depth review of this pedal because it's been out a while and there are plenty of good reviews of it, including one that both Pete and myself did on the Andertons TV YouTube channel, which is in the description box. However, the reason for this video is the update. So I wanted to talk about the new update. So first things first. So as we look at the GoPro now, you can see the display is as you'd expect. If you currently own a DD-500 and you haven't updated it, this is what it looks like. If you have, this is how you change the routing options to give us sort of bespoke delay out of either side. You hit edit, you go down to where it says system, and then in system, we'll scroll down to where it says FS mode. It's currently on normal. If we scroll along, you can see it says A, B, and C, which turns these three buttons into being able to turn on and off different delays. So you end up with three toggleable delays that you can access on the foot switch. If we go up again, then we move to where it says A and B simul, which basically means running A and B simultaneously. So you've got A and B, you can choose to have those split out of the back, either together to both amps or independently to both amps. And we still have use of the tap tempo control here. This is the one that we want if we want the routing to be specific to each output. If we move along, you've got switch up and switch down. So it means you can basically use more A to turn it on, then you've got B to go up and C to go down. This is the one we want. We want A and B simultaneously. Now you exit that, you may have noticed there's a new menu called Bank. If you go up to Bank, you can see here, this is how we determine our routing options. So output mode is currently set to mix. I want to change that to A and B, which means these are two independent delays. Or you can have them mixed together if you want to mix two different delays together, but we want two separate delays. And of course you can adjust the levels of them and you can time sync them as well. That's up to you. But then also connection is parallel, or we can have it as series, which means series is A into B, so you're going to be putting one delay into another and then sending that to both amps. But we want parallel, so we've got them independently of each other. So with that in mind, it's now changed the display. Hopefully you'll be able to see that the display is now splitting two different delays up rather than one screen that holds just the one. So we're running now a standard delay and an analog delay. Let's have a listen. And of course, I should mention that you can now independently turn on and off the two delays. So it's exactly like the RV and MD-500 in terms of its routing functionality. Now if I play a chord, because we're in stereo still, you should have out of each headphone a different sounding delay, analog and standard. There you go, that's great. And of course, if we're wanting to edit these, you literally just use the down arrows to adjust exactly what it is you want. So I might change the time of this one, but then I scroll up to turn down the time of this one. And of course, this constitutes for the echo level as well. So now it'll open up a world of different possibilities in terms of the kind of delays you'll be able to play with live. Again, team these up with the RV and the MD-500 as well, and you've got bespoke delay, reverb and modulation to one amp and completely differently to the other. It's just insane. But here's a little example of mixing two different delays together in stereo. So there you go, there's a quick example of the different routing options in the DD-500's update, whereby what I'd done there was I used a bit of analog delay to give me that ambient bed, and then I used a standard delay to pick out the picking pattern and add some rhythm. So you ended up with these really nice sort of ambient mess of sound. And as soon as you throw reverb into that, then suddenly you've gone from like 10 to 1 million in terms of how epic it is. It's addictive using a stereo rig, and I suggest you check one out if you can, because pedals like these, the DD-500, the RV-500 and an AMD-500, are super handy if you're wanting to run a stereo rig and get the most out of your effects. But yeah, there you go. It's just a quick overview of the delay machines inside the DD-500, and then I just touch quickly on how you can change the routing options in the pedal to give you that kind of bespoke delay either side. So yeah, hopefully it was useful. I'll put links in the description box to the DD-500, the firmware update, and some in-depth reviews of the pedal as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you all very soon.